A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next item is council representative report. Alderperson Caravello, anything to report out?
There was no activity at the last council meeting that regarded planning, so nothing to report.
All right, thank you. Staff reports, anything to report out?
I was just going to highlight, Mayor, the year-to-date values and comparisons from 2019 to 2020 are in the commissioner's packets. But I think it's noteworthy that commercial construction value, we had a pretty marked increase in construction value increase from 14 million in 2019 to 32 million. Now, that's not necessarily assessed value for the listeners, but it represents what people have identified as the cost of their construction projects when they take out permits. What's really caused the large increase in 2020 was Zinc Power, the major industrial manufacturer plant that's under construction at this point, was about $18 million reported value for that construction. So while it's not done yet, there is plant beginning to be in the ground. So that will come out of the tax rolls as that continues to through to completion. So, and in addition to that, there was a pretty sizable increase in residential construction value increase also in 2020. So we're happy about those trends.
All right, anybody have any questions about the report? Next item is a public hearing regarding the proposed amendment of the project plan for tax incremental district number 4. And before we start the public hearing, I'll have David Ferris from Ellers can kind of go through and give a high level summary of what the proposal is, and then we can have any questions or go right into the public hearing. Go ahead, David. You're muted right now.
And hear everything I've said was probably the best it was going to get, darn it. Oh, anyways, so we just met with the Joint Review Board and we went over what their role is and did a brief summary of the project plan and went over that with them. We only had one question from the school district that kind of asked about what was going on in TID 8 as far as development, and that was really the only question that came up from them initially. So are you going to have me run this screen, or do you want me to tell you where to go?
I can move it forward for you if you'd like, Dave.
Okay. Let's see. So on page 4, actually page 3, it's page 3 is where I want to start, because page 4 is more of the Joint Review Board stuff. So this district was created on March 23rd of 1999 as a blight district. It was used, as the city knows, to upgrade public infrastructure and provide for grants to motivate the property owners to perform improvements to their property. This is actually the 3rd amendment to the district, but there's only been one territory amended to the district, which happened back in 2010. We could have amended for this over the life of the district 4 times, but you only use that once. So the purpose of the amendment is to allow for increment sharing from TID number 4 to TID 5 and TID 8. As some of you may remember from the financial management plan presentation, we demonstrated that some of the TIF districts are really underperforming, which is the ones that we can actually share to are TID 5 and TID 8. And as we get to the back of the project plan, you'll see the before and after potentials of those TIF districts. But all the, TID 4 is able to share with TID 5 and TID 8, which is important. The expenditure period for TID 4 ends on March 23rd of 2021, so that's why we're trying to get an amendment in quick before we're not able to actually provide that assistance to those other TIF districts. As of 1/1/20, the valuation of TID number 4 is $7,866,100. And if you want to go forward, Rodney, now that I'll actually be speaking from this, I believe everybody probably knows where the boundaries. If you want to just go past those maps quick, if anybody has a question on where they're located, you can obviously stop there. Otherwise, if you go to page 13. In the plan. Sorry. There you go. So in this document, you can see the total increment value that's been generated on the 2020 2019 construction year, which is the one that is most recently certified by the Department of Revenue. We have the $7,866,000 of value. Using the tax rate the equalized tax rate, which is what the TIF increment is based on, it's generating about almost $175,000 increment on an annual basis. So going forward, there's increment that we can share through the year 2026 when the TIF has to close. That's its final revenue year. If you go to page 15 then, Rodney. This demonstrates TID 4 as we presented it to the City Council for the financial management plan. We were talking about potentially doing a little bit more in revolving loans, and then potentially closing in 2021. And as you realize from the meeting, the question came up as to, well, if we've got these underperforming TIDs, is there a way for TID 4 to share with those? And that answer ended up being yes, and to the 2 TIDs that we're identifying tonight. So on the next page is the picture of what TID 4 looks like if the sharing agreement or the sharing amendment is passed. TID 8 would get a boost right off the bat, and TID 5 would get pretty much the bulk of it going forward. Oop, back up one, please. So those donation columns right kind of in the middle of the green expenditure period or area is where the sharing would go, and that's based on some work that Jamin and I worked on as part of putting this together. So as you can see, the district would stay open until 2026, and it would close then after hitting its final revenue period. So to show you what TID 5 looked like when we presented, you can see that not only do we close with an advance from the general fund of about $265,000, which is the red column way down at the 2040. So that if that can't get paid back to the general fund, then basically the general fund's going to have to transfer that money to the TIF to close it out. So that's $265,000 that the general taxpayer would pay, as well as the levy support, which is about the 4th column from the left, of about $425,000. So for TID 5, if we don't give it some help, even though we extended it 3 years, it could cost the city about $700,000 to the taxpayer. So if we do an amendment based on how we kind of project we would allocate the sharing, you can see that TID 5 basically gets rid of the levy support, and hopefully with maybe some development over the years, we may not have to do that levy support of $80,000, but we also get rid of that advance. The general fund gets paid back, and this district will close successfully. For TID number 8, which is on the next page, this one in the red column, the cumulative column, ends with about a $250,000 advance from the general fund that would also have to be transferred from the general fund off the local taxpayer. But this has a levy support of almost $1 million. So we were aware that there are some good things going on with the RDA, talking with the developer. It's hopeful that this will not look like this, even, even with a sharing agreement in place, that things would maybe close a little bit faster, or you'd be able to accomplish the goals of this district. But at this point, if we don't do anything and you don't have any development, which is kind of a worst case scenario here, things are kind of bleak. But on the next page, also not anticipating any development, which we know that we have a good shot at getting. This district actually has the ability to pay back that advance. The one thing it would still need development to do is to pay back that almost $1 million of levy support. So, TIP 4 will help this district get rid of at least the advance, but we still need that development to eliminate that levy support. So that's kind of a really important way to look at how we get the general fund to not take such the brunt of the financial hit, and things like that are things that Moody's looks at, and it could affect your rating if we don't have some kind of a course of action. So that's kind of a summary of what the project plan is about and what we're trying to accomplish. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions from any of the commissioners before we close the regular meeting and go into public hearing? All right, hearing none, we'll close the regular meeting and reopen for the public hearing. I did not have anyone signed up, but if there's anyone that has any questions or wishes to speak on this issue at the public hearing, now's your chance. And hearing nobody, we'll close the public hearing and we'll reopen the regular order of business here. Item number 6 is consideration and possible action on the resolution for the project plan amendment. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The one thing that I think we need to probably see if we can get a hold of is the resolution does say that we have retained an opinion of the city attorney. And I don't know, Ryan or Jamin, if he has that in the works, but I think typically we're going a little faster than normal because it's a sharing amendment, but it would be good if we had it for tomorrow night. Otherwise, probably as soon as possible.
All right, we should be able to get that. I think the attorney, we can contact him through the email, or Rachel can take the message back for us.
Okay.
So an action on this resolution would be conditioned upon that being satisfied, I assume, that Dave, correct?
That's what I was going to recommend, yes.
All right, good point. Anything else? So I would entertain a motion with that recommendation.
I'll make the motion to move the plan ahead, pending the attorney's opinion on the plan.
And is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, take your pick. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 I
And any opposed? And any abstentions on that one? All right, that item does carry. We also need a resolution. Is that what I'm seeing here? Item number 7, or is that the same thing?
What was 6?
That was the Plan Commission resolution,
Yeah.
and
For Planning Commission, the second one is recommendation to council.
okay,
Okay.
Correct.
Number 7 is the resolution that goes to the council,
okay,
whereas 6 was the resolution of it.
okay. Thank you for the clarification. So I would entertain a motion to consider action to the council resolution project plan.
I will move that we move the resolution approving the project plan to the council.
And is there a second?
I'll second that one.
All right, any discussion on that one? I assume we need the same letter for that one?
Yes, I would think so.
That sound right, Dave?
Yep.
Okay, so it'll be city attorney letter as well?
I would think that's probably what the council, yeah, if you're asking that, pending that letter, that would work.
Okay. Any questions?
I would have made the motion. I was on mute, so only my kids were hearing me make the motion.
All right, all in favor of the recommendation, say aye.
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 And any opposed? And any abstentions on that one? That motion does carry. So we'll see that one is going to be at council tomorrow night, I believe. And it's time sensitive, so that's why it's on there. We had sent out an outline of the meeting dates on December 15th, so hopefully the council members recall seeing that letter. So it shouldn't come as any surprise, although, you know, in the month of December, it's hard to see everything that comes through. So we'll see that one tomorrow night. Item number 8 is a request
Thank you.
by, thank you, David. Item number 8 is a request by Dale Besky for extraterritorial jurisdiction land approval, DSM, for a property located at 1357 Tower Drive in the town of Dunkirk. And this one will be looking for a recommendation. Do you want to go over it, Rodney?
Sure, just basically it's on the far reaches of our extraterritorial jurisdiction on Tower Drive. They're creating a slightly larger parcel for this particular existing dwelling unit. It's not inconsistent with our comprehensive plan. It's outside of our long-term planning boundary.
Okay, and I know Dale is at the meeting here. Anything you want to add, Dale?
Basically, what's happening here is that the Pipers, who have operated the farm for many years, like over 50, probably 60 years, for my late aunt, wish to buy the shed, which is adjacent to their garage. And I've submitted this to the county. I've submitted it to the city. Since I submitted this to the city, the county came back and said the remaining FP 35 would have to be rezoned to FP1. So the certified survey map will include a 33-acre remainder parcel, which basically surrounds the parcel we're looking at here. It's just part of their new zoning code. It doesn't, there's no new driveways being intended here. There's no new house that would be allowed. The packet, so the map that you're showing there, the area outlined in red is what would be added to the Piper parcel, which is the house with the green roof immediately to the north. And this fall, we did demolition on this property. So the old milking parlor that crosses the red line is gone. The concrete is gone. The old feeding barn is gone, and the silos are gone. So that a lot of stuff that appears in this 2017 aerial photo are now gone. And this would allow the Pipers to use the shed for their own purposes. It gives them ownership of the driveway where they've had an easement for many, many years, and changes their parcel from SFR 08, I think it is, which is half acre over 8,000 feet, but less than an acre of single family residential, changes it to RR1, which is rural residential with a 1 acre. And I think the resulting parcel is a little bit over 1 acre. 1.14 acres is the resulting parcel. Also in the packet, there's a consent form signed by Ron Piper that he's in favor of this and has given me approval to act as agent for him on this rezone.
All right, thank you. Is there anything we need, Rodney, to add to our materials, or do we have everything we need for our consideration?
I think we have everything we need and staff does not have any objections to the submittal.
Okay, so at this point, are there any questions from commissioners? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for a recommendation to the city council on this request.
So moved.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
All right, last chance, any discussion on this issue? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. The next request is by Andrew Walker for extraterritorial jurisdiction land division approval, CSM, for property located at 2967 Shady Side Drive in the town of Pleasant Springs. We're also going to be looking for a recommendation. You want to review this one for us, Rodney?
Sure, this actually creates an additional building parcel along the south side of Shady Side Drive, which is the southern edge of Lake Eganza. I would classify it as an infill development. It is on the limited service district, sewer sanitary district for that area. It certainly is a logical location for another residential unit. It's not in conflict with our comprehensive plan for that area to be developed as it's shown here.
All right, and just as a reminder, our extraterritorial jurisdiction is 1.5 miles of the city boundaries, I believe.
Correct.
And by state law, is it, or is it county, that we could go as much as 3 miles if we chose to?
Yeah, with some additional things, we'd actually have to have a, there's a few items, but based on our population, we could go out 3 miles for ETJ review, correct?
Okay. And I don't know if the applicant is here on this one.
I don't
Doesn't
believe so.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to be anyway. Does anybody have any questions about this request?
On their map, they have on there the, as far as the house and the garage on the lot 1 and then the lot 2, I see that there's some, an orphaned shed out there. I'm assuming that that must also transfer to this lot 2, or do we know if that's any sort of significant structure or?
I'm not for sure. I think the owner of lot 1 still owns lot 2 at this point. So I assume the shed will either get dispensed with or sold with the parcel when lot 2 is developed.
Okay, just wanted to know that was the only thing that was on that drawing.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for a recommendation on this one.
I'll make the motion for that.
And a second?
Second.
All right, last chance, any comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion does carry. Thank you. Item number 10, a request by Phil Harrison to amend the zoning code to allow flags and banners for commercial signage. This one, we have the ability, we'll be having a public hearing on it. Anything to update the group on since the last meeting? I know Attorney Schneider is with us tonight too, to look at this and one of the other items if you have any questions for her. Anything you need to get us up to date on, Rodney?
Yeah, I think we tried to capture the discussion of the commission at the last meeting. one of the points was trying to have one feather flag per street frontage. That's included in the draft that's in the packet with this tonight. And it continues to have the language that it would be removed when business is not open. So at the end of business each day, it would need to be removed. And under this standard, these need to be placed within or on the private property side of the lots.
All right, any questions before we close the meeting and open up for a public hearing? Hearing none, we'll close the regular meeting and reopen for a public hearing. I do not have anyone signed up for this one, but if anybody would wish to speak on this issue, the floor would be yours. I see Mr. Harrison is on the line. If he has anything or anybody else.
Could I ask a question there? Just try to figure this out.
Sure.
We're putting this on a private property, but it can be how close to the line? What is there a conflict between a commercial sign and a personal property line? And what kind of margin are we leaving for that?
Yeah, so it would have to be behind the property line. It would have to be on private property. It could not be within the right of way. There isn't any prescribed position back from the property line that it would have to be as currently written.
Well, my thought about that is that if this is going to be a commercial sign, and it's next to a private property, would there not be a reason for at least some kind of margin in there that would separate the two properties, or is it not really an issue as you've experienced it? I don't know.
Yes, so I'm not envisioning there being a significant challenge with this, Tom, because the fact that it would likely be along the front property line, along the right of way, the property line of the right of way. And this particular temporary sign would have to come in each night after the business closes, and would only, the physical dimensions of this only allow for it to be 3 feet wide by a maximum of 12 feet high. So I guess we could consider something. I don't know that it'll become a problem with adjacent side lot line issues.
Thank you. I just wonder if it becomes a problem, then we have a whole lot more to do. What about just having a side property setback, a sideline property setback of say 6 feet, so it's not right on the property line of somebody's private residence? I don't bring this up to make trouble. I just think maybe we should get it settled in the beginning so we don't run into somebody in a conflict. Maybe your experience shows that's not really a problem.
Yeah, you're welcome to make a change, as part of the public hearing process. Take that testimony and consider an alteration to it. These are specifically for business zone parcels. That's not to say there couldn't be an adjacent residential property next to a business zone property.
Are you saying there could be one adjacent to it?
There could be. At some point, the business district stops, and oftentimes it transitions into a residential district. So yes.
I'd like the committee to at least consider saying something like the signage, whatever it is, the signage will not be closer than 6 feet to any private property, residential, or whatever wordage you think is best, but it also have a setback from either side. If it's a residential property, it should have a setback of say 6 feet from the property line between the commercial and the residential. I'm sure you can say that better than I did, but.
All right, they'll figure that out while we're closing up this public hearing portion of this. Anything else anybody wants to add? Anybody from the public?
I guess I don't have anything to really add to this one other than that I appreciate the Planning Commission's consideration in this and coming to a reasonable accommodation.
All right, thank you, and we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll close the public hearing and then reopen for our regular business. So we're looking at having a well, it just says a request. Is this going to council or is this staying with the Plan Commission?
No, we'd be making a recommendation on the ordinance.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. So we're looking for a recommendation. And then I guess the discussion needs to be, should we include something to the effect of what Commissioner Seltzer was getting at, and what would that sound like?
I could offer some language if that was the desire. Under item D as shown on the screen here, after the width of 3 feet, you may add some language such as, and shall not be closer than 6 feet to a side property line.
Just a point of clarification though, currently all signage, there's no setback for any sign. So they could put a freestanding sign or a monument sign along a property line. So this would be kind of a unique requirement.
It gets to our ambitious goal of trying to rewrite the entire sign code at some point.
Right.
Well, I would be comfortable with adding that and starting it here, and at some point if the ambitious goal comes to fruition, then would I be okay with adding it to this particular piece?
This is Todd. I'll be abstaining from the final vote because it affects my property. But question would be if there's, somewhere else in the ordinances that makes sense to have 6 feet versus some other distance. It's just going to kind of start to set a precedent for changes in the sign code. I mean, is there something else within zoning in terms of setbacks where 6 foot is the distance that makes the most sense? I guess I'm asking staff that question.
I don't know that 6 feet ties to any other particular setback distance on anything of note. In this particular case, if it does have a 3 foot wave, it would now be 3 foot officially away from the side property line. So, you could look at it like an overhang almost, a protection from anything overhanging the property line.
Well, if I could, if we've got that 3 foot, I didn't know about the 3 foot wave limitation, and I think that's a good one, and I don't see why we should mess with this and make it 6 feet. It makes sense, and I'm glad that would be there because putting the flag on the property line itself sort of intrudes on the neighbor's property, especially if it's a private residence. So I have no objection to it the way it is.
If I can clarify, I'm just pointing out that if that was the intent, I think we just reduce your previous point from 6 feet down to 3 feet. That would ensure that it wouldn't exceed on to overhang the property, if you will.
Well, you're a real wheeler dealer, but you win.
It sounds like a compromise to me. So I guess the question is somebody willing to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing no more discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Item 11.
Mayor, just record my one abstention, please.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Thanks for reminding us. Item 11 is a proposed amendment to the zoning code to allow mobile food vending on private property and to clarify general outdoor sales regulations. This one, we also have a public hearing. I know Attorney Schneider's been working days and nights and weekends on this. Do you want to kind of give us an update of where you're at and where you think we are and where we might go with this one?
Sure. So the ordinance that you see before you now is very similar to the one we discussed last time, except that we've taken the time now to add in all of the places where we would need to update the descriptions for the types of uses in each district. So if you recall, right now what we're attempting to do is to regulate food trucks, mobile vending vehicles via zoning. And we're doing that by saying that mobile food vending is allowed in certain districts and not in others. So this looks probably a lot longer than what you remember seeing last time because we've had to add in to each description of a different type of district, whether mobile food vending is allowed there. We've also updated this to reflect that the use of mobile food vending at special events. So we're essentially allowing food trucks in two different circumstances. One is just mobile food vending, and that would be permissible in all districts except residential districts and except the central business district. Then there's mobile food vending at special events, and that's allowed anywhere special events are allowed, which is pretty much anywhere. Then the third thing that this does is it updates the city's district or temporary use for general outdoor sales. We are rolling outdoor sales of farm products into this one. So you'll have one category for temporary outdoor sales that's distinct from mobile food vending right now. And then it makes some updates to what's required for approval of temporary uses. So when somebody submits an application, one of the things they're required to do right now is to submit a map of the proposed use. We're changing that to just be a site plan. So I think at this point, there were definitely questions last time about whether the types of conditions that are being placed on temporary mobile food vending permits are what you want them to be. For example, right now it would be authorized for 180 days, and there was a question about whether that time period was what the Plan Commission would want to see, or if you would want to change that. So I think we're getting close, but we're not quite there yet. I anticipate some more amendments, but that's what the public hearing hopefully is for, to get some feedback and looking for any direction from the Plan Commission on specific amendments that you'd like to see.
All right, thank you for the summary. Before we go into public hearing, are there any questions or comments from commissioners? And I don't see any. I see Chief Luck on there. Did you have anything in particular on this one? I know you're involved in the special events permits. If you have anything you're concerned about.
No, I'm just basically monitoring because this does not allow for on-road vending unless it's under a special event permit, which would be fine with me.
All right, and Sarah's on from the chamber. Is there anything from your point of view? Is this cover any concerns you might have for setting them and any other events you're trying to have?
No, I think that it's spelled out.
So, and I think, logistically, you would still fill out a special events permit like you normally would. I guess my brain is kind of freezing right now. I'm not sure if that still goes. Does that come to planning now, or does that, where does that go?
Public safety, I think the city clerk, I think it's filed with the city clerk, and I think public safety and public works have a review about the impacts to potentially street closures and other aspects of the special event.
So nothing has really changed on the special event.
This doesn't make those changes, correct? This just leaves that as it was, if you will.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure with everything going on, it wasn't 100% certain, which is fine. I think it seems to be working. Everybody kind of has a routine. They basically have a template at this point, and they just kind of scribble out the old date and put in the new year, and they go with it unless there's a new event. So I think that's been serving us well. Anything from the commissioners?
Mayor, the one thing I would add about the special event is that we aren't changing anything about the special event licensing itself, but we are making a temporary use, or we are creating a temporary use to allow for mobile food vending specifically in connection with those. And all temporary uses require submission to the zoning administrator. So they would still have to get a site plan approved.
And typically, they probably do a site plan and give it to the clerk and the chief. So what you're saying is they'd probably have to share that with the plan department as well?
Right, so what we're doing is creating a new temporary use. And so all of the provisions about temporary uses under the zoning code would apply. So the person that's seeking to be a mobile food vendor in connection with a special event would need to get a site plan approved by the zoning administrator, just like for any other temporary use.
But
Okay.
those are only for temporary uses on private property. So the mobile food vending, if they were associated with a special event, but in the public right of way, it wouldn't fall within the zoning regulations we're discussing here.
Oh, you
Correct.
really got me
Rachel,
confused.
did I have that correct, Rachel?
Well, when we're on public right of way, we're in a completely different world.
Yeah.
Zoning doesn't apply to public right of way, but if you're going to start walking on a property that itself is zoned, then you need approval as a temporary use.
Yeah.
And temporary uses require approval from the zoning administrator. So if your whole event is on the road, then no. But then you don't need the zoning permission in the first place.
So let's use a real life example. Setting them eyes or anything that Sarah would have to do differently.
I don't know how that event works. So I'm gonna need some help from staff or anybody who can explain to me how that event is set up.
Mayor, when I read through it, I don't see that it should affect Setting Them Out Hall the way it's written. But that's just my interpretation.
I would agree with that.
Okay, how about the fair?
Anything in a park,
So we have to communicate with the fair board or any of the groups that Dan Glenn works with Park and Rec.
Yeah, I think when they submit their application for their special event permit, that they want to make sure that they really carefully think about the boundaries of that special event. I think that's the biggest thing that is clear, I think, in this. Because it also sets up then that zone in which no one else can be like piggyback vending, because you have to stay a certain distance away from that boundary of the special event.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
So-
so we'll have to communicate that internally. Did you have something, Rodney?
I was just going to highlight that there is an additional legal review that we are hoping to have incorporated into this before it gets acted on by council. So I think tonight we're hoping to take public testimony initially, and then we'll likely bring it back to Plan Commission before it moves on to the council anyhow, given the fact that we're we have a different set of eyes. We'd like to have a look at this particular aspect of regulation.
Okay, yeah, last time we did that, Rachel ended up overhauling the whole thing, so let's hope that doesn't happen again. But you did a great job.
Well, we just want to make sure we aren't walking you into dangerous territory without knowing it.
All right,
And for the Plan Commission, just so you know what we're talking about, there's a lot of litigation out there about food trucks and regulations. And we have an associate now who's handled some of that litigation. So we just want to make sure there's another set of eyes on it with some background and experience in the issue area who may have some perspective that might help us make sure that we're framing this in a way that is as legally defensible as possible should you face any litigation about it.
excellent. So we still have a need for public hearing, I believe. Did I ever go into that?
Nope.
All right, so we'll close the regular meeting and reopen for the public hearing. Once again, I didn't have anyone signed up, but if there is somebody at the meeting here that would wish to speak to this topic, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Yes, Phil Harrison here. I guess my biggest concern with it is the no more than 180 consecutive days, and the fact that a temporary use permit under this verbiage of the ordinance can only be issued once per calendar year. So it's essentially saying that you're going to approve this, and it's okay for the location because it doesn't cause any hindrance to anything around it, but yet it's only allowed to be for 6 months out of the year. So also, if you were to have a food vendor who specifically wanted to be in the Stoughton area in May, and then also wanted to come back around Halloween, they may not be able to do that under the way that it's written. I don't see any reason why it would not be able to be reapproved after the 6 months. If it's okay for 6 months, why is it not okay to be reapproved for another 6 months?
I do agree with that also.
All right, well, I think the theory is, you know, we're operating under a temporary use, and that really would make it a more of a permanent use. And I think that was kind of the theory there.
Wouldn't permanent use constitute either an annual permit or a one-time application and approved? I can't think of anything else in the zoning code other than you have X number of days to get a permit for something after you start doing it, that limits it to so many calendar days per year, but yet wanting to add it to this. And I feel like it's a preferential treatment to the brick and mortar businesses and becoming more of a preferential treatment based on tax revenue, I guess.
All right. Are there any other comments here at public hearing?
I'd have a comment if I could, and I'm not very knowledgeable in this, so I'll just say, would this have anything to do with weather? Like we're cutting off the half of the year that weather's bringing ice and snow and the half that isn't. So I'm just want to be sure we're not overlooking that as a logical reason not to do something, but I may be way off. So just thought I'd bring it up. Hello?
Weather is not contemplated in the temporary use regulations.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wondered.
All right. Anybody else wish to speak at the public hearing portion? All right, otherwise we'll close the public hearing and then reopen the regular meeting. And as mentioned, we plan on bringing this back. We can certainly look at the 180-day issue. You know, basically we landed there because we're working on a temporary use permit. And really that's the way that we're allowing this at all in a food cart. So I'm not really sure if we were willing to accommodate that, if, you know, how we would go about doing that. Maybe Rachel, you can bring back some insight or some options on that. Anybody else have any other research or questions that you might want to have before the next meeting? Or if not, if something pops up, feel free to shoot us an email or a phone call and we'll check into that as well.
I just have one question, Mayor, and I think I probably know the answer, but I want to make sure that I'm clear. We still have quite a bit of similarity between the write-up for the general temporary outdoor sales and the mobile food carts or mobile food vending, with the majority of the bullet points after each being exactly the same. I'm guessing that from a code perspective, you need these two separate sections because different zoning classes allow for one or only one of these. Like some allow for both and some only allow for the general temporary outdoor sales and don't allow for the mobile food vending. Is that why we broke it off into two sections?
Yes, this is Rachel, and that's exactly the effect of this. So technically mobile food vending and the way it's regulated right now is it's part of general outdoor sales, but by breaking it off, we're able to say that this particular category of what you might call outdoor sales is permitted only in certain zoning districts and not necessarily in the same zoning districts that general outdoor sales is. So yes, there's a lot of conditions and requirements that are the same, but the effect of breaking it out is to essentially be able to say you can do that here but not there.
All right, then that gives me a good reason for the redundancy. So the only other thing I would just say we might want to keep in the back of our mind is I think there's maybe a little bit of tweaking that we can do to help distinguish the difference between the two. And I'm just thinking of like one mobile food vendor that currently operates in Stoughton, and that's the seafood truck that's at the farmer's market at the Dollar General during the summer and has been parked other places in Stoughton outside of the farmer's market. They are, I mean, I could see classes like that being a little confusing because they're not technically a mobile food vendor the way it's defined, because they don't process the food, they don't make the food. It's all pre-packaged, pre-frozen, off-site. All they're doing is retailing it and selling it. And so with our definition of the general temporary outdoor sales and the way there's like some very clear seasonal garden sales, fireworks, vegetable fruit sales, and Christmas tree sales, it makes it sound like it's kind of limited. So we may just want to tweak either that list under general temporary outdoor sales or somehow distinguish the difference between a truck like the seafood truck versus a mobile food vendor.
All right. Thank you for that. I had kind of one question myself. If somebody had the temporary use permit, does that, would they still be allowed to set up under a special event? So let's say they have the 180 days, it expires, but they want to do the fair or the Centennial or the farmer's market, and they pay the fee and they're included in the special event permit. Would they be allowed to do that as well?
Yes, these are two separate temporary uses. So you would right now be able to utilize both.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, we'll more than likely see this back here next month, hopefully in a similar form, but I'm not guaranteeing that. That takes us to future agenda items.
Is there a motion to table that one or?
We can postpone it or not take action or table it, whatever the commission would like to do.
I
I'll
think
take action on it.
I think it's understood that it's gonna come back after review at the next.
All right, we can do that. So we have future agenda items, anything on your list?
Well, certainly this item will come back. We'd anticipate some further discussions related to the 51 West development proposed area. We are also seeing a replat of an outlot in Kettle Park West, which was anticipated in the comp plan to, or in the overall plan to be a cul-de-sac to create 6 additional single-family residential lots. We'll see that in February as well, along with the associated rezoning for that request.
All right. I think that's all we had on tonight. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
So move.
All right, and a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. We're
No, the original pictures, but there's no septic.